Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a very special event this morning with the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. My name is David Walden. I'm the Secretary General of the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, and it's our very great pleasure to welcome, we'll say, back to Wendy Watson-Wright. But let me first give you a little bit of information about the Canadian Commission for UNESCO in the context of why we're having this particular presentation this morning. UNESCO is the only organization in the entire United Nations system that has national commissions. We are not employees of UNESCO. We are all Canadians who are working for the advancement of UNESCO's program activities in Canada. And we'd like to take advantage of opportunities like Wendy's visit to Canada to explain and provide more information about what UNESCO is and does, both within Canada and globally. It's also appropriate that we're meeting in this particular room that's called the Massey-Levesque room. It's part of the meeting rooms, a suite of meeting rooms that belongs to the Canada Council for the Arts, which is the host organization for the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. And some of you may know that the Right Honourable Vincent Massey and the Most Reverend Georges-Henri Levesque co-chaired the Royal Commission on National Development in the Arts, Letters and Sciences, which reported in 1951. Part of the mandate of that Royal Commission was to look at methods by which the relations between Canada and the United Nations Educational Scientific Cultural Organization could be conducted. The thing that's important about this to us particularly is that Vincent Massey led the Canadian delegation to the founding convention of UNESCO, so he had a very deep understanding of what UNESCO and national commissions were all about. So when it came time for Canada to explore this issue, we had someone who was very deeply involved and already knew. So I think it's entirely appropriate that we're meeting in a room named after a person who brought the sciences and culture together in Canada and worked for UNESCO. And so we're having a meeting about science in an arts council. So I'd like to, Wendy has said she doesn't need a great introduction to all of you. I think you saw her background and her CV in the invitation that we sent for those of you who don't know. What it doesn't say, though, and I think is also very important, is that Wendy is the first Canadian and the first woman to lead the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, and we're very proud of that. So Wendy, with that.
Thank you, David, and thank you all for being here. It's, I have to say, it's really nice to be in a room full of so many familiar faces, and I do appreciate your having taken the time to come and out of your retirement, some of you, to be here. I'd like to talk today, probably there will be 4 parts to the presentation. First, I know that many in the audience here are familiar with the ocean and its importance and what's happening in the ocean, but I think it's important to repeat that and to talk about the Earth system and ecosystem services. I then, of course, would like to tell you a little bit about the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, because I believe that our organization does have an important role to play in the management of our relationship with the ocean. I, of course, will talk about Canada and the ocean, and then would like to suggest a few areas where I think Canada has a lot of strengths and also opportunities for leadership. And I'm certainly hoping to stimulate a bit of discussion at the end of the day. Now, so what about the ocean? Well, I think we all know it covers 71% of the Earth's surface. It accounts for 97% of the Earth's water. It contains 96% of the Earth's living space, provides 2/3 of the value of all the natural services offered by the planet, and the oxygen for every second breath that we take. It has certainly cushioned the blow of climate change by absorbing 25 to 30% of all anthropogenic carbon emissions, and by and 80% of the heat added to the global system. So it regulates our water and, of course, provides food for billions of people. The ocean and its resources are a part of our common heritage, and certainly an important part of many cultures whose beliefs and practices are closely associated with the marine and coastal environment. In fact, 49 UNESCO World Heritage Sites have been inscribed for their coastal or marine values. The ocean also offers more and more exciting opportunities for the development of new drugs to treat all kinds of human ailments, and non-market benefits such as climate regulation, carbon sequestration, habitat, biodiversity, and many others. So the ocean, in fact, is priceless. Worldwide, of course, the ocean is a critical economic resource. The value of marine activities globally has been estimated at 5% of global GDP, or somewhere around $3 trillion US. 90% of all goods are shipped by the sea, and more than 40% of the human population lives in the coastal zone, with the estimates saying that by 2025 this is going to reach 75%. Fisheries provide about 4.2 billion people with more than 15% of their average per capita intake of animal protein. And fisheries and aquaculture provide more than 180 million jobs in the entire industry. As of October 2010, 3.2 gigawatts of offshore wind power capacity was operational, and this capacity is expected to reach a total of 75 gigawatts worldwide by 2020. So in fact, the ocean supports many industries, not just fisheries and aquaculture, but shipping, oil and gas, marine and coastal tourism, including cruise ships, which some of you I know like to go on, submarine cables and pipeline dredging, ports, offshore renewable energy, mining, and more. So the ocean is an integral part of the planet, and it is an absolutely essential component of human lives, livelihoods, and the environments that sustain us. Now, despite our reliance on marine resources, ocean acidification, climate change, polluting activities, and overexploitation of marine resources have made the ocean one of the Earth's most threatened ecosystems. And I'm going to give you just a few examples of how human activities threaten the ocean and its precious resources. The ocean, as I've said, absorbs more than 26% of the carbon dioxide emitted to the atmosphere from human activities. Now, the result is increased acidity, or a lowered pH, of the ocean. What this does is it can reduce the availability of calcium for plankton and shelled species, and of course it threatens their survival. Now, since many of these organisms serve as the base of much of the marine food chain, the potential impact on acidification on entire ecosystems can be dramatic. And in business as usual scenarios, the ocean could become 150% more acidic by the year 2100. Now, land-based sources such as agricultural runoff, discharge of nutrients and pesticides, and untreated sewage, including plastics, account for approximately 80% of marine pollution globally. Excessive nutrients from sewage outfalls and agricultural runoff have contributed to the rise in the number of dead zones, or hypoxic areas, from 49 in the 1960s to over 400 in 2008, and I believe now it's up over 500. This has resulted in the collapse of some ecosystems. So nowadays, more than 245,000 square kilometers are affected, equivalent to the size of the United Kingdom. Over 80% of the world's 232 marine ecoregions have reported the presence of invasive species, which is the second most significant cause of biodiversity loss on a global scale. Marine bioinvasion rates have been reported to be as high as up to 1 invasion every 9 weeks. The world's marine capture fisheries are in a severely troubled state. The FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, estimates that 85% of fish stocks are fully exploited, overexploited, depleted, or recovering from depletion. In fact, the ocean faces a multitude of interconnected threats that is unprecedented in modern human history. All regions of the ocean stand to be impacted by multiple stressors in the near future, while over 40% of marine ecosystems are already simultaneously facing several of the major pressures outlined before. And now the need to understand the complex interactions and potentially cumulative effects of multiple stressors is one of the most pressing issues in marine ecology today. So the ocean, once thought to be a vast, resilient area able to absorb practically unlimited waste and to withstand increasing human population, increasing fishing and shipping pressures, is increasingly vulnerable. And as the use of ocean space and resources is an essential component of global economic growth and prosperity, we must shift our way of using the ocean toward a human-centered relationship where humankind would be living with the ocean and from the ocean in a sustainable manner. Now, there's no universally accepted definition of the blue-green economy. Actually, there's no accepted reality that there is a blue-green economy, but we like to think that there is. I think that key dimensions, though, could include such things as a greater adoption of renewable energy from the ocean, changes in fisheries and aquaculture management regimes at regional and national levels, adaptation to sea level rise and climate change, protection and restoration of ocean ecosystems and biodiversity, including in areas beyond national jurisdiction, active seafloor management, and more. Now, global economic activity, as I said, is between 3 and 6 trillion US dollars a year. This includes a wide range of ocean industries essential to both current and future economic development. So a major change for future green management could include also partnerships among industry, government at all levels, and communities. And just a few examples. Future green practices in the ocean will see major changes in the nature, location, and intensity of fishing and aquaculture. This will likely include the development of offshore large-scale aquaculture and the better management of fisheries, including foreign fisheries in domestic waters. Green practices in aquaculture should promote the growth of extractive species like seaweeds and filter-feeding shellfish, and lower trophic level farming, which convert food to fish protein more efficiently than carnivorous species. This would also include integrated multi-trophic aquaculture, or IMTA, which provides the byproducts from one species as inputs for another. With significant reductions in ship source pollution over the past 3 decades, technological developments toward improved hull design, alternative sources of fuel, increasing fuel efficiency, and enhanced concern for environmental matters, maritime transport, I believe, will be a core element of the blue-green economy. And in fact, Maersk has openly stated that they're going to decrease their emissions by 20% by the year 2020. Technological advances are of course, allowing deeper oil and gas exploration and drilling, but the impact on climate change from the fossil fuel energy sector will put increasing pressure on that sector to invest in alternative renewable technologies in the future. The ocean, of course, contains large amounts of untapped clean renewable energy resources that can play a significant role in the future energy portfolio. So ocean energy sources could become the primary energy source for some resource-rich coastal communities. For tourism, greening the blue economy would imply switching from non-sustainable tourism to ecotourism and other sustainable tourism practices that go along with the generation of other forms of revenue. Now, some countries that have a very rich underwater heritage, countries such as Sweden and Turkey, have in fact constructed major museums which are now reaping the benefits, more economic benefits. Palau, the Pacific island nation that declared its waters a sanctuary free of shark fishing, estimates the value to the tourism of a single individual reef shark as $1.9 million US dollars over its lifetime. And you think, in contrast, a single reef shark would bring only $108 as direct fishery revenue. So not too much math to be done there. Marine biotechnology, including the protection of intellectual property rights, will certainly be an important part of the future blue-green economy. And of course, this does imply greater protection of biodiversity, including biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions, alongside increases in investment in scientific research and commercialization of new and existing opportunities with sectors such as pharmaceuticals, food production, and aquaculture all being important. And regarding pollution, A combination of technological advances through clean technologies, which are aligned with a much greater institutional willingness to deal with difficult issues, as well as application of state-of-the-art policy, regulatory and economic instruments, should provide a basis for reducing pollution, especially the impact of excess nutrients in the marine environment. Now, as the primary user of the ocean, I believe that industry is well placed to develop and implement solutions in response to society's increasing demands, and that maritime ecosystem use is sustainable and impacts are reduced. Ocean industries also have a huge potential to collect oceanographic and atmospheric data that contribute to better modeling and predicting ocean conditions, extreme weather events, and climate change that impact economies and livelihoods. And again, I think that developing public-private partnerships could be a good way to find solutions to impacts and to improve ocean data. So I'd like to move now to give you a little more information about the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the IOC, and no, it's not the International Olympic Committee, and where we fit in all of this. The UNESCO, as you know, is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, was created in 1945 to respond to the firm belief of nations who had just gone through 2 world wars in less than a generation, that political and economic agreements are not enough to build a lasting peace, but that peace must be established on the basis of humanity's moral and intellectual solidarity. UNESCO is the only body in the UN system having in its title and mandate the S for science, which of course includes natural sciences and engineering, social sciences and humanities, and of course, ocean sciences. The Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO is the sole organization within the UN system and the only intergovernmental body with a mandate in ocean science in all ocean basins of the world. Établie en 1960, la COI a été créée au sein de l'UNESCO pour la promotion de la coopération internationale afin de coordonner les programmes de recherche, les observations, les services et le renforcement des capacités dans le but de générer des connaissances sur la nature et les ressources de l'océan et des zones côtières, et d'appliquer ces connaissances à l'amélioration de la gestion, le développement durable, la protection de l'environnement marin et les processus de prise de décision de ses États membres. Au sein du système des Nations Unies, la COI sert de point focal pour l'observation de l'océan, la science de l'océan, les services océaniques et l'échange de données. En outre, la Convention des Nations Unies sur le droit de la mer, ou UNCLOS, considère la COI comme l'organisation internationale compétente pour les sciences de la mer. Les objectifs de haut niveau et des programmes de la COI répondent à notre mission. À la base de l'action de la COI se trouvent des activités mondiales et régionales, de même que le renforcement des capacités. Nos objectifs, comme vous pouvez voir ici, incluent également une activité importante dans les domaines suivants: risques naturels tels que les tsunamis, changement climatique et variabilité, santé de l'océan et la connexion entre science et politique de gestion. La COI effectue cette tâche dans le monde entier en collaboration avec et à travers ses États membres, ses organes et bureaux régionaux montrés ici. And we sometimes call this the spaghetti graphic because it looks pretty complicated. In fact, it is, but it seems to function. Now, la COI est l'organisme responsable de la coordination du système mondial d'observation de l'océan, the Global Ocean Observing System, or GOOS. GOOS is a collaborative system of observations where the components of the system are funded by national sources. The system includes satellite observations and in situ observations, which you can see here, as well as operational observing networks and sustained, mostly research-funded observing networks and platforms. The data from these observations feeds into data management systems and to the generation of products to reach users, having impacts in science and more directly for society. So GOOSE encompasses global scale and coastal observations. Now you can see in the graph at the bottom that there was a rapid expansion of in situ ocean observations in the last decade, but that investment in sustaining the system has plateaued before it's been completed, and this is a concern. On tsunami warning systems, the IOC has successfully coordinated the Pacific Tsunami Warning System since 1965. Now, after the Sumatra tsunami of 2004, the IOC received the mandate to coordinate the establishment of 3 more tsunami warning systems in the Indian Ocean, the Caribbean, and the Northeast Atlantic, Mediterranean, and connected seas. And a key deliverable was reached in the Indian Ocean just 1 year ago, when for the first time, the Indian Ocean regional watch providers took over the provision of warnings to national centers in their own region. The International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange, or IODE, was established by the IOC in 1961 in order to facilitate the exchange of ocean data among the IOC member states. And today, there are 144 IOC member states. 80 national oceanographic data centers participate in IODE, including DFO's Integrated Science Data Management Group, and it recently adopted as a key component the Ocean Biogeographic Information System, or OBIS, from the Census of Marine Life. Now, the Census of Marine Life, which ran from 2000 to 2010, was a global network of 2,700 researchers from over 600 institutions in 80 countries, engaged in an international collaborative initiative to assess and explain the diversity, distribution, and abundance of marine life in the ocean. OBIS contains nearly 30 million observations and is among the largest providers to the Global Biodiversity Information Facility. Canada, in fact, made the presentation which led to IOC's Assembly's adoption of OBIS in 2009, and Canada has been a keen supporter ever since. Now, the IOC and the World Meteorological Organization together have a joint commission, which is unique in the UN system, and this commission is for oceanography and marine meteorology, called JCOM. 2 technical coordinators work closely with operators from many countries of drifting buoys, moored buoys and time series, ships of opportunity, and Argo subsurface profiling floats. They ensure that these networks are being deployed to common standards and are sharing data in real time with the entire global community. And for your information, Canada, in the name of Savi Narayanan, was one of the first 2 co-chairs of JCOM. And Canada to date has deployed 337 Argo floats, which is about 1/10 of all the Argo floats deployed globally. Now, in addition to the more operational programs I've just discussed, the IOC is also responsible for providing advice to policymakers and for disseminating results. And I would say an especially timely document published in 2009, considering what has recently come to light off the coast of British Columbia, is the Scientific Summary for Policymakers on Ocean Fertilization. And for those of you who may not know, there was I would say a not controlled experiment, 10 times the concentration of iron sulfate being put into the ocean off BC this summer that only became evident recently. Now, this summary for policymakers was provided at the specific request of the International Maritime Organization with respect to the London Convention and London Protocol. IOC is also very involved in integrated management, especially in developing countries. Integrated coastal zone or coastal area management is still a relatively new and evolving concept, but the integration principle, of course, was developed in Agenda 21 from the first Rio Conference in 1992 as a tool to promote sustainable development. Also related to integrated management is marine spatial planning. This, of course, is a public process of analyzing and allocating the spatial and temporal distribution of human activities in marine areas to achieve ecological, economic, and social objectives that have usually been specified through a political process. And as you can see in the lower right, IOC UNESCO has developed a step-by-step approach for implementing marine spatial planning, which has been used by many countries. And IOC continues to play a lead role in the Global Marine or World Ocean Assessment. The name is kind of changing right now. It was up until now known as the regular process for global marine reporting and assessment, including social and economic aspects. You can see why they want to change the name. It is due to have its first cycle completed by 2014, and this will coincide with the next review by the Commission on Sustainable Development on the theme Ocean and Seas. And Canada, through DFOs Jake Rice and Renee Sauvé, hi Renee, has played and continues to play a leadership role in this process. And very recently, 2 weeks ago in fact, IOC and UNESCO have become involved in ocean literacy. This is a movement which began in the United States in 2004. Now, their Ocean Literacy Network has been working to describe and document the science, content, and processes related to the ocean, coasts, and in their case, the Great Lakes, that should be included in all future science education standards at the local, state, and national levels. And now the European Union is now embarking upon its own ocean literacy campaign. And of course, the IOC would hope to see this movement grow around the world. It's actually very interesting and very exciting. And personally, I think that UNESCO would be a natural home for it in the UN system. Now, the IOC and UNESCO have been key players in the recent international debate on sustainable development as it relates to the ocean. Now, this debate was recently highlighted at the UN Convention on Sustainable Development, or Rio+20, this past June. During the Rio+20 negotiations, in fact, the ocean community mobilization was quite successful. There were over 375 taking part in Ocean Day, and that was quite unprecedented, as well as an unbelievable number of side events that were organized around the ocean issue. As a result, the political declaration adopted by the heads of state, which is entitled The Future We Want, contains at least 18 paragraphs dealing with the ocean and coast. This is very positive, especially when you figure that in March of 2011, going into the second preparatory meeting, there was not one mention of the ocean or the coast in any document going into the negotiations. So a lot of work went into that. Also at Rio+20, there seemed to be widespread support among countries for the formulation of a sustainable development goal dedicated to the ocean. Now, just 2 months ago, during the Yosu, South Korea Expo 2012, whose theme was the living ocean and coast, Secretary General Ban Ki-moon launched the Ocean Compact. This new initiative is aimed at protecting the ocean and the people whose livelihoods depend upon it. Its intent is to increase coordination of efforts within the UN system regarding ocean protection. It will also provide a platform to help countries protect the ocean's natural resources, restore its full food production to help people whose livelihoods depend on the sea, and increase awareness and knowledge about the management of the ocean. In addition, you can see on the right, over 80 countries, civil society groups, private companies, and international organizations have declared support for the new World Bank-led Global Partnership for Oceans, signaling a commitment to work together to restore the world's ocean. And in line with that, The Economist, the magazine The Economist, recently in February hosted their first World Ocean Summit, looking at the economics of the ocean, and they have plans to do that again, with Vancouver being a possible venue for their next summit. So let's talk a little bit about Canada and its 3 ocean basins. I would hope that all of you here know that the ocean is of key importance to Canada's culture, environment, public health, and economy. It is certainly an integral component of the culture of many Aboriginal peoples and coastal communities. Canadians, even those that are inland, depend on the ocean to supply food, mineral resources, transportation routes, recreation, and employment. Now, depending upon from where you get your statistics, Canada's coastline has been estimated at approximately 202,000 kilometers, by far the world's longest. It's 5 times longer than the next country. The ocean estate in Canada covers a surface area of about 5.6 million square kilometers. This is said to be 9th in the world, representing an area equivalent to about 70% of Canada's landmass. And of course, Canada extends from sea to sea to sea, from the Atlantic to the Arctic and into the Pacific Ocean, or the other way around, depending upon where you're from. Each of Canada's 3 ocean areas is characterized by distinct biophysical settings. The Pacific Ocean contains some of the oldest deep water in the world, rich in nutrients yet lower in oxygen. Large amounts of freshwater inputs to the Pacific Ocean contribute to lower salinity than in the Atlantic Ocean and drive large-scale transport of ocean water from the Pacific to the Atlantic via the Arctic Ocean. Sea ice and associated temperature and light conditions dominate the Arctic Ocean's unique physical environment. And of course, cold Arctic waters discharge into the North Atlantic, driving vertical mixing within the Atlantic and contributing to global circulation. Now, despite large-scale exchanges of water, these ocean areas differ in circulation patterns, physical environment, and geography, which does contribute to the differences in biogeography, biogeochemical cycling, and contaminant concentrations. Now, but these characteristics of Canada's ocean waters define in turn the ecology and the marine biodiversity that can be found, and certainly put Canada in what I think is a very unique position in terms of being able to contribute to knowledge of the world's ocean. I've already mentioned the recent Census of Marine Life program, where Canada played a huge leadership role. In fact, the chief scientist was Canadian, one of the board of directors was Canadian, and many Canadian scientists participated. This initiative prompted an attempt at cataloging the biodiversity of the world's ocean, including Canada's. The total number of species in Canadian waters enumerated by 2010 reached a minimum of 15,988, which increases to almost 16,500 if you add seabirds, sponges, cold water corals, and invertebrates around hydrothermal vents. Canada also hosts 40% of the world's marine mammal species. Now, activities dependent on the ocean make a substantial contribution to the Canadian economy. Fisheries and naval installations provided the rationale for the first European settlement. Fish processing, shipbuilding, and marine transportation followed, providing the basis for economic development and growth on all 3 of Canada's coasts. Now, these ocean activities defined settlement patterns that continue to this day. And then new activities have emerged over the years, which include tourism, aquaculture, biotechnology, specialized manufacturing, and oil and gas exploration and development. And of course, there are a wide range of service industries that support these activities. But together, they create substantial opportunities as well as challenges for traditional uses. Ocean-related industries employ about 316,000 Canadians and contribute more than $26 billion of gross domestic product each year. And this does not include the $100 billion trade industry that is helped by Canada's marine shipping industry. So you can see, in order of importance in terms of percent of GDP, the sectors which contribute most to Canada's economy, starting with oil and gas at the bottom, going all the way up through public sector and research and manufacturing and construction. Now, Canada has in the past defined itself as a fishing and shipping nation with a long history and culture based on the rich productivity and diversity of its ocean resources. And having recognized this at an early stage, the importance of managing these vast ocean areas, Canada was one of the first countries in the world to take steps toward elaborating a national ocean policy, and it was the first in the world to pass an Oceans Act in 1997, a statute which formalizes in a comprehensive way how Canada's ocean basins are to be defined and managed. So Canada's ocean basins both define and sustain this nation. They support a wide range of human activities, as I've shown. But here in Canada, as elsewhere, the ocean has suffered as a result of human activity, including from overfishing, pollution, and all the things we do that drive climate change. Changes in Canadian species have been among the greatest recorded for fish worldwide, especially in the Atlantic, where total biomass of species such as Atlantic cod, American plaice, Acadian redfish, round-nosed grenadier, and winter skate have declined by more than 90% since the 1960s. Overexploitation also affects marine mammals, and at least one species, the gray whale, is no longer found in Canadian waters as a result. I've spoken previously of ocean acidification. Now, this had already been affecting the Canadian aquaculture industry, as you can see by the quote here from the British Columbia Shellfish Growers Association. Canada, of course, is not immune from pollution, in particular oil spills. We know that oil spills can have significant impacts on both the environment and local coastal communities. These spills can range from large quantities of oil from oil tankers to smaller accidental discharges of oil and fuel from smaller craft in marinas. And across Canada from 2007 to 2009, a total of about 4,160 pollution incidents were reported to the Canadian Coast Guard, of which about 1,580 involved oil spills from ships. And during that same period, about 30 pollution incidents involving chemical spills from vessels were reported to the Coast Guard. So I'd like to move now to the last part of my talk and to briefly mention what I believe are some of Canada's strengths. And as I said, I hope to generate some discussion on opportunities for Canada with regard to the ocean, with a focus on, but not restricted to, ocean science. Where are Canada's opportunities in ocean leadership? Well, with all that ocean space, certainly I think Canada has great potential to lead on greening the blue economy. Marine renewable energy could be part of this. Canada's marine energy sector is much like the country and its population in general. It is regionalized and relatively small. But as you can see in the graph on the lower right, Canada is not among the 6 leading countries in terms of cumulative installed offshore wind power capacity by country. But it has been estimated that Canada's current electricity needs, all of Canada's current electricity needs, could be met 36 times over with domestic offshore wind energy. And Canada's wave and tidal energy resources have been recognized globally as one of the richest in the world. The National Energy Board forecasts about 20,000 megawatts of ocean energy potential in Canada. So indeed, I believe Canada could potentially become a marine renewable energy champion. Integrated coastal zone management also offers opportunities. Canada does have experience and lessons learned that it can share with other countries who are not as advanced. Certainly, integrated ocean management plans have been completed in 2 ocean areas, and 3 more are nearing completion, I believe. And with so much ocean and so many industries vying for ocean space, again, Canada could show a great deal of leadership in marine spatial planning. But it's on the science and technology side where I really see the strengths and opportunities. And certainly Canada's interest in understanding the global ocean has inspired leadership on ocean observations. For example, Venus and Neptune Canada, which are part of the Ocean Networks Canada of University of Victoria, are considered to be the world leaders in cabled underwater observatories. Through fiber optic cable, seafloor nodes, and innovative scientific equipment, the observatory really is changing the way we study the ocean, and it's providing scientific evidence for policymakers on a wide range of critical issues, as well as developing new world-leading technologies. The Ocean Tracking Network, headquartered at Dalhousie University in Halifax, allows made-in-Canada ocean tracking and monitoring technology to be deployed in all of the world's 5 ocean basins. And so far, about 200 international researchers from 15 countries are partners in tracking fish and other marine species. Most recently, funding for the new Network of Centers of Excellence, MEOPAR, which stands for Marine Environmental Observation, Prediction, and Response Network, also centered at Dalhousie, was announced. MEOPAR is dedicated to addressing critical issues related to human activity in the marine environment, as well as the impact of marine hazards on human activities in coastal regions, and is working to help reduce Canada's vulnerability and exposure to hazards and to decrease response times when marine emergencies occur. Related to the initiatives that I've just described are the numerous and varied ocean science alliances, which to my mind are quite unique to Canada. Now, the NCE's, Networks of Centers of Excellence, have certainly stood the test of time, and they are envied throughout the world. I spoke already of MEOPAR, but in addition, ArcticNet, although it's not restricted to ocean science, has certainly made its mark. And indeed, the work of the granting councils and the NCEs continue to be admired globally. I've mentioned as well Ocean Networks Canada, which over the last 7 years has seen investments from both governments of British Columbia and Canada in developing the world's largest and most advanced cabled observatory. It is drawing researchers from around the world and certainly has members from across Canada. The Halifax Marine Research Institute was inaugurated just last year in June of 2011. The idea behind this institute is to unite researchers with business to spark more economic activity in the ocean sector in Atlantic Canada. The Canadian Consortium of Ocean Research Universities, which appears to be quite unique, is made up of 9 Canadian universities. And this CCORU was established to help develop a national vision for ocean research in Canada by determining strategic research priorities that will set a clear direction for future research in the field of ocean science. And in fact, this was the organization responsible for the current assessment of ocean science in Canada by the Council of Canadian Academies. I also see the various technology clusters that exist across the country as critical alliances. And further to that, I believe that Canada Foundation for Innovation is also seen as an international model and strength for funding science infrastructure, including ocean science infrastructure. And again, I think that the current CCA assessment of Canadian ocean science presents a wonderful opportunity to build on Canada's successes. Now, an anchor to all of this could be the Federal Ocean Science and Technology Map, which was put together by science-based departments and agencies and published just 2 years ago in early 2010. I think this provides an excellent roadmap for the federal ocean S&T community to reach out to universities, colleges, the private sectors, and NGOs to come up with a national roadmap for Canadian science and technology. And I believe that this could also be the basis for the creation, or I should say the recreation, of a Canadian National Committee on Ocean Science. There are a number of other countries around the world that have such committees, and they truly do allow ocean science to have a unified national voice. And I think that this is the perfect time for Canada to start thinking about doing this. Of course, it's also a little self-serving because then it would also feed into the IOC. Now, the last point I'd like to highlight today is capacity building for ocean science, technology, and management. Canada in the past has been seen as a pillar in building capacity in developing countries with regard to ocean science and services. We know that the lack of human and institutional capacity in ocean sciences and monitoring and management is a real barrier for some nations, especially least developed countries and small island developing states, in their efforts to achieve sustainable growth. As of today, we do not have a global baseline to assess where countries are in terms of their infrastructure, their scientific assets, expertise, and more importantly, how scientific results are being used in the formulation of ocean and coastal policies. I strongly believe that in line with the global strategy for building national and regional capacity in the transfer of marine technology, which the IOC is in the throes of developing post-Rio +20, that Canada could and should play a significant role in realizing that strategy, And I would urge any and all of those of you who are in a position to move and shake on this, that you should ensure that Canada as a nation is well positioned. So in closing, I'd like to come back to the importance of the ocean to the world and in particular to Canada. And I believe that Sylvia Earle, one of the planet's preeminent ocean scientists, has articulated well the importance of the ocean for humankind and the planet. She said, "Even if you never have a chance to see or touch the ocean touches you with every breath you take, every drop you drink, every bite you consume. Everyone, everywhere, is inextricably connected to and utterly dependent upon the existence of the sea." Canada, with by far the world's longest coastline and bordered by 3 of the 5 global ocean basins, can, indeed must, be a player in ensuring the global ocean is respected, protected, and sustained. So I thank you very much for your attention, and I certainly look forward to our discussion. Merci beaucoup.